welcome to another vlog. My name is Corni, if you are new to my channel, and I'm going to be talking about my first labor and delivery. So if you haven't watched any of my other videos, I am pregnant for the second time and I have a 1-year-old. I had a baby girl in 2018 and she's beautiful and healthy and growing like a champ, and yeah, she's 1 now. But I would just like to share my story with you. So we recently moved back from the Middle East. We lived in Doha, Qatar for 4.5 years. Well, my husband was there for 4.5 and I was there for 3.5. We got married the first year that he was there, and then I joined him a year later. So for me it was 3.5 years away from home, and for him it was 4.5. So the Middle East was a little different when it came to birth and delivery, and the way they did things, or their procedures and their timeline even was very different than to what I'm already experiencing now in South Africa, in Cape Town. So yeah, let me just start at the beginning. So I found out I was pregnant very early on, and I went to a doctor right away so that they can have it on their, so that they can, make a record of it or something. They never did any blood tests, which I was a little surprised about. I thought that would just be routine. And I went through for all my checkups at the local health center in Doha. So the expats all got sent to this one health center out in Al Dayan. So it was about 45 minutes drive from where we lived in West Bay out to Al Dayan. But it was a beautiful medical facility with all the GPs and apparently a gynecologist and nurses and x-rays and anything you can think of you can have done at that medical center. I also did it through the state, so the state covered everything for me. All I needed was a health card, so I paid 50 reals, let's say that's about 200 rand, South African rands per year. I have to think how many dollars that would be. It's 3.6 is the exchange rate. It's 3.6 Qatari Riyal for $1. So if you want to work that out, but that's per year. That covers all your medical expenses. Whether you're in an accident, emergencies, anything. The only thing is you make an appointment, but it's like a rough appointment. It's like arrive half an hour before. Sometimes I would be helped right away. Other times I would only be seen an hour later. So it is luck of the draw what day you go, which doctor you see, and so on. So I went through for my checkups at this health center, but I quickly realized that I'd like to see a gynecologist. Because like I said previously, apparently they were gynecologists, but I wasn't about to just let the pregnancy unfold on faith and hoping that everything would be okay. The reason for this was I missed my 13-week scan, the nuclear translucence scan. That is, quite important to see if baby's growing properly, if baby has any defects, or maybe developing Down syndrome. And that's one test that my husband said, that we have to do. It's very important to him to know, to be able to prepare for something like that. And I was in South Africa for between 10 and 13 weeks while I was pregnant, and it was over Christmas time. But the doctors in Doha at this health center told me that it's fine, when you come back we can do the test. I would be about 14 weeks. So I saw her again at 14 weeks. It was the same doctor. It's not always the same person. And she said, inshallah, everything will be fine. Now, there, inshallah, is God willing. You know, if God wants it to be fine, it will be fine. Now, I am all for having faith and believing, but I wasn't going to just leave that up to chance. I then immediately asked to be transferred to the Cuban hospital. So the Cuban hospital is one of the few places, few state hospitals, that you can have your husband with you during labor and delivery. So they, if you go to the big Hamad hospital in Doha, you are not allowed to have your husband with you when you have a Caesar, or even when you're, you know, pushing your baby out. So I really wanted my husband there for moral support, which you can imagine. So I was then transferred to the Cuban, and the Cuban is pretty far away. It's about 60 kilometers outside of Doha. So it took me roughly about 55 minutes to drive out there, depending on traffic. And then, you know, I mean, it all started. I saw a doctor there at 17 weeks. Obviously, it was way too late to do the scan. We then considered doing a DNA, a chromosome test to see. I then went for just a normal ultrasound, and then I would have to go to this one center where they take blood and they send my blood in with the ultrasound to Germany. And it would cost something ridiculous, like 4,000 rial. So I mean, that's a ridiculous amount of money for this test, and I mean, it's only 90% accurate or 95% accurate. It was very stressful because, I mean, we had to at that point make a call of, are we going to do this test? Are we going to go on faith? And we decided to just leave it. I was feeling very confident. My baby was fine. I was under 30, healthy, no complications so far. So I decided to just let it go and do not do the test. The results would also not be immediate. And I thought the stress of just waiting for something to happen would just not be good for me or for baby. So I left it. Pregnancy progressed very nicely. Baby was nice and big. She was a tall girl from the start. I always said, oh, she's going to be tall and so on. And I mean, she is still today. I then went into labor, spontaneous labor, at 39 weeks and 5 days. So 2 days before my scheduled or estimated due date. The day before Celine was born, I experienced Braxton Hicks constantly, every 20 minutes, the whole day. It was a Thursday, and I still remember going in for coffee in the morning with my friends, with my huge belly, and just having every 20 minutes like clockwork the whole day. And I kind of knew that something was up, something's coming. It was going to be a good, a Thursday is the last day of the week for them. So my husband would be home on the Friday because he never put in any leave. Because we don't know when baby's coming. So, I mean, that was a good thing. And so that evening at about 10:30, I phoned my doula. I did have a doula. And I'm like, ooh, I'm getting some contractions, proper contractions with pain around my stomach and around my back area. And it's like heavy period pains. And I mean, it's, you absolutely know when it's a contraction. There was no doubt for me. So she just said, get some rest, it's way too early, try to go to sleep, and just get some rest, because I mean, if something's gonna be up, you're gonna need your strength. I went to bed immediately, fell asleep, and I woke up around 4:30, and I just couldn't lie down anymore. The pain was really intense, and so I got up. My husband was still sleeping, and I started doing things around the house, cleaning the kitchen. I ironed a few shirts. I knew from the birthing course the antenatal course that we did, that, you know, stay as upright and mobile, keep moving as much as you can during the early parts to, you know, get these things going, to get things moving. I was very confident, very at ease though, like I wasn't nervous or anything. I was very relaxed because I knew, okay, it's today is the day. And I went about my, you know, my things that I did. I can't remember everything that I did. But then at one point I went to call my husband and I was like, listen, I think we should start timing the contractions because they seem to be coming pretty regularly. And at that point I hadn't timed them. And this was about 7:30 in the morning. So I started timing them, but I'm active, I'm moving, I'm on my feet and, you know, swaying about, and I was very comfortable still. I mean, it wasn't intense. Sometimes it would take my breath away, and then quickly they progressed, and I mean, 5 minutes apart, 4.5 minutes, then we got to 3.5 minutes, and I told my husband, okay, I'm gonna jump in the shower, and you know, let's start moving on, because I felt like, you know, things were moving along. So I'm not sure if that was just an immature decision because it was my first labor, but I jumped in the shower, packed my bag, put everything else that I needed in my bag, like the cameras, the charging cables and all of those things, and got in the car, got the car seat. Was very exciting, and we drove to the petrol station. The gas station, needed to put some gas in the car before we took the long drive. So I was in contact with my doula already, and she said she's not going to come through just yet. We can let her know what the doctor says once I'm checked out. So I was still timing my contractions all throughout the drive there, and I mean, they slowed down so much. It was so sad to see, because I was like, well, what's the point of going then? Because it is far away. We knew the chances of us going back home were slim. We got to the hospital, spoke to a nurse first who wanted to know why I was there, and then I waited for a doctor to come and, you know, check me out. They then put a monitor on me, and I was only contracting about every 6 or 7 minutes. I mean, so it was way down. When he actually checked how much, if I was dilated, I was only at 1 centimeter. That was so sad, and it was quite painful when he checked. So he was the doctor on call. He wasn't the doctor that I'd seen throughout my checkups, unfortunately. So this was a Dr. Sergio. I don't even know what his first name is, so I can't tell you. But he said he's not gonna let us go home. He wants to admit me. So we went up to the maternity ward. It took forever though, because after I'd been on the monitor for 20 minutes in the emergency, they then wanted to monitor me for another 20 minutes up in the ward, because the doctor would come every 2 hours to come and check how I am. So it was so frustrating, because I knew in order for labor to, you know, get going again, I need to be moving, I need to be up on my feet and here I am lying back with the straps on my stomach, and I can't move, and I'm still having contractions. It's still painful, and I just feel like there's nothing I could do to help pain manage at this point. My husband gave me my earphones and I listened to some music, and that helped quite a lot. He then tried to massage my feet, but we were put in a joint room, so we were sharing a room for the first couple of hours. This was around 11 o'clock now in the day, and around 2 we got our own room. So I was walking up and down the hallways at this point to just trying to get it going, and every time I got a contraction, it was like the people were like, oh, she's in pain, and I'm like, well, I'm supposed to be in pain. I'm gonna have a baby. You know, this isn't gonna be all a walk in the park. But it was like the nurses were like, oh, you know, oh, are you in pain? Or kind of surprised by it. And I was totally taken aback by their reactions. And I then, so when we got to our own room, I took a shower, I put my jammies on, I wanted to get comfortable, and you know, I was doing some yoga breathing on the floor. They brought me a yoga ball, like a birthing ball, and I took my yoga mat so I can be on my all fours. And by about 4 o'clock, my water broke. Ooh, it was this huge gush. It felt like a balloon popped inside me. It was a really, really cool but strange feeling. Like, I'll never forget it. And I immediately, because I just put on my really nice jammies, it said, is it due date yet? And I just lifted up my jammies because I was like, oh, my water broke. Like, I didn't want to get anything on my pajamas. And I just threw on the hospital gown. At that point, my doula walked in, and it was like the perfect timing because it was so painful after that. They wheeled me into an examination room. The doctor checked me again, 8 centimeters, but I'm contracting like all the time. It felt like I was just beside myself. There was no pain management going on. There was, I did not know how to cope with this part. I knew I was heading into transition, and the doctor then said, okay, let's move on over to the labor and delivery room. So we've moved from our room to the examination room, moving now to the labor and delivery room. We didn't have anything with us. I didn't take my music. I didn't know I was not going to go back to that room, which I know now is pretty standard practice, to have your baby in a different room and then go back to your recovery room. So that was kind of like, and I mean, I had my doula there as well as my husband, and neither of them thought about the music. But anyways, it happens. First time. So labor and delivery room, it felt like I spent hours in there, on my back, on my sides. My back started hurting a lot if I was on my back, and they wanted to constantly monitor a baby's heartbeat, and I just couldn't understand why, you know. I know it's to be safe, but it just felt like too much. They encouraged me to do squats, to bounce on the birthing ball. The nurse went to go fetch it from our room, which was lovely. She was lovely. I drank a bit of water, and then I just wanted to push. I started pushing, and it was that awful pushing of holding your breath, pushing like for 10, it's like counting to 10 until the contraction was gone, and then, you know, you stop. It felt like I pushed for a very long time. I think I did start pushing too early. And then all of a sudden she crowned. I'm talking 2 hours later here. She crowned, and they didn't stop me. The doctor didn't stop me. I was fully prepared to stop and pant, so that they can do whatever, so that I wouldn't tear. Oh yeah, I must say, the doctor put me back on my back. He didn't want to. He said he couldn't see if I was like sitting or squatting or whatever. He wanted a full view. And I specifically asked them, well, the Cuban hospital, if I can choose the way that I want to give birth, because I knew from the antenatal classes that it's very important, the position that you give birth in, to minimize tearing, to minimize pain. And I was in a lot of pain. I didn't take anything. I tried gas and oxygen, I think 2 breaths, 2 contractions, and I was like, no. I flung the mask in the corner because it kept falling off the tube. It was just a frustrating thing. So, I mean, that didn't help me at all. No epidural. I didn't want to take any morphine. Okay, and then baby was crowning. Pain is all I remember. It was very painful. My husband kept saying, she's coming, I can see her, she's coming. And he was very supportive and just, you know, holding my hand and just trying to say anything to just keep me going, because I was really exhausted at that point. Then baby came out and they put her on top of me. I just then I felt this jab in my leg. The vitamin K? No, they give baby vitamin K, I think. Whatever they give you to make your placenta come out. So the doctor did do delayed cord clamping. I think he waited a minute or two. Baby was on top of me. Shame, all purpley and blue, and she was crying, but she was just beautiful, and it was so great to get through that. But I must be honest with you, I didn't feel that "oh, mommy" moment instantly. I was still in a lot of pain, and it didn't help that they started giving me all these injections to numb me, because I had a 2nd-degree tear. And so that was, I mean, super painful. There was nothing wrong with baby, but they took her away after the 2 minutes, after they cut the cord. And it was specifically my birth plan that I wanted that hour with her. I wanted the golden hour. And again, my doula didn't say anything, my husband didn't say anything. So that was, I couldn't understand it, why, because the one moment she was here, I closed my eyes for a second and they just took her away, like I blinked and my baby was gone. So then the stitching took a very long time, and it was super painful, even with the pain meds then that they given me. They then put me onto another bed and then wheeled me back to our room, and baby was there waiting, and my husband. They then said, well, baby's glucose levels are really low. I need to establish breastfeeding. Now this is after an hour and let's say 10 minutes. They wanted her to breastfeed within the next 10 minutes, or they were going to give her formula. You can't establish breastfeeding in 10 minutes. I knew that. The nurses weren't very helpful. I didn't know what I was doing. It wasn't that instinct thing. Celine wasn't that great of a latcher in the beginning. She just started crying the more I forced her onto my breast, and that was so scary. And I mean, I couldn't do anything, so they gave her formula, and so then they had to carry out tests every 4 hours. Every 4 hours for the next 24 hours something, to make sure her glucose levels stayed at the level that it should be. And then, I mean, they said I need to feed her every 2 hours, which is fine. But the thing is just that she wouldn't wake up. She just wouldn't wake up. It was very hard to get baby just lucid enough to get to my breast and to breastfeed. So yeah, that was, we stayed there for 2 nights because Celine was born after 8 p.m. So they wanted to keep us Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday morning we were able to go home. Her glucose levels was fine. We established a bit of breastfeeding, but it was a struggle every time. It wasn't easy to get her to latch and to keep drinking. She would just fall asleep right away. So by Sunday evening, my mom had joined us in Doha. What was that? Sorry, I just heard a loud bang. My mom joined us in Doha, and by that evening, Celine was really upset and she was really hungry. So I expressed some milk because my milk had come in, and she drank from a bottle. She just wouldn't come close to me. If I took her in my arms, she would just start screaming. So we said, well, can't do anything about that. Baby's really hungry, so I give her a bottle. And then the next day, We spent some skin to skin time in bed, just her and me. My husband had to go out and get a few things, and we established breastfeeding. And the postpartum recovery started because I was so uncomfortable. I couldn't sit the way I'm sitting now. It was so uncomfortable. So in my next labor and delivery, I'm definitely going to do a few things differently. And but yeah, so the Middle East is strange. It's very weird to have given birth there, but I'm very grateful, because had anything gone wrong, we would have been in excellent hands. And I'm still very grateful for everyone, for the doctors, the nurses, that my baby and I are pretty healthy, and we were doing fine. And thank you to the state of Qatar for a very cheap birth, because it cost us 200 real, 800 rand, like for the 2-night stay. So yeah, that's my labor and delivery story. Sorry for any gory details, but yeah, okay. Thank you so much for listening. If you have a strange, or not strange, if you have a story that you'd like to share with me, give me a comment. Let me know how your labor and delivery went, especially if you delivered in the Middle East or Doha. I'd love to read your stories. All right, take care. We'll speak later. Bye.